WTF, it keeps booting me off. This is the third time I've had to reactivate a charger, and it only charges for a minute and then boots you back. I'm going to try to run across 6 lanes of traffic and grab a terrible coffee at Tim Hortons. While it's charging, it's pulling. Yeah, you see, it doesn't work. It just stopped the charge. Well, good afternoon and welcome back to Simply Greg's 3V. Today we are going on a road trip to Ontario. We're going to Toronto, well, just north of Toronto to Barrie. So this is about 600 kilometers, and I'm taking the Fiat because I have absolutely lost my mind. But it's warm outside, it's springtime, and I want to do a proper road trip in the Fiat. None of this driving to Ottawa, driving to Quebec City. Let's do a proper road trip. Let's go check out what the charging infrastructure is like in Ontario. We got the Fiat. I actually bolted on the summer tires for it because I need maximum efficiency on this trip, and it's springtime outside, all the snow is melting. So summer tires bolted back on the Fiat. If it does snow again, I could bolt the winters back on relatively easily at work. Let's go in the car and check out the numbers, what this is going to be like. So we are at 94% state of charge. We actually drove from work to here. We're just here in Vaudreuil-Dorion. I wanted to get out and not film around work and get out of the traffic, as you can see over there. So we've already driven roughly 16 kilometers. 94% state of charge, indicated 217. This trip is going to be about efficiency and charging. I'm predicting 4 charging trips on this trip. So we'll just check the kilometers, how long it's going to take to get to Barrie regularly. We'll go to recent searches, Barrie here. So showing from here, 583 kilometers, 5 hours, 25 minutes, and it's already reporting crashes on the 401 as per. So the plan for charging, I think what we're going to do, sorry, Google Maps is really annoying sometimes of how it wants you, with how it positions everything. I think if we could make it to, hopefully we can make it to Brockville. If we can make our first charging stop in Brockville, there's an Electrify Canada there. If we hit Brockville, that'll be awesome. If not, we'll stop somewhere here and charge on Ivy, Ontario's provincial charging network, which is pretty garbage, but they are in the process of making it better. So we'll pull out of the parking lot, usual like on our range tests, down the 401 into Ontario. And I have actually never taken an EV this far into Ontario, so this should be fun. Sit back, enjoy. Let's get on the road. I've decided on this trip we're just going to stick around 108, 110, maintain good efficiency, but also a half decent speed. So right now we're averaging 16.2 kilowatt hours per 100. Wind is non-existent today. There's no wind blowing on any of the flags that I see. 10 degrees outside. We got the low rolling resistance Pirelli EV tires on the car. So we're all good to go here. We're at 88% state of charge. We've already driven 24.7 kilometers and we're just here chilling on the 401. But I think the 401 is going to start getting on my nerves probably in about an hour or two when the traffic starts getting heavier. We're showing 154 kilometers to Brockville currently. I'd like that to be our first charging stop, but if we don't get there, there's decent charging along the way. And this is kind of the point why I'm taking the Fiat, is to check out the CCS charging infrastructure in Ontario. We already know. Time for an update from inside the 500E. Just past Cornwall, we've traveled 94 kilometers, 57% state of charge. We're averaging around 15.5 to 16 kilowatt hours. We're just going up a hill now, so that's why it changed. I entered Brockville. Brockville is 89 kilometers away. Should be arriving in 52 minutes for our first charging stop. It's showing 126 kilometers of range remaining. I don't see an issue getting there at all based on what we've burned already. It might be a little tight, but we should be good to go to hit Brockville. So that's what I'm planning for our first charging stop. Everything is good here. 13 Celsius outside, still no wind. Pretty light traffic on the 401. I think I left at that in-between time. Just arrived at Brockville at Canadian Tire at Electrify Canada. 14% state of charge. We did 183 kilometers from 100% down to 14%. So we'll get plugged in here. This is one of those sites that's really far off the highway for absolutely no reason. Like most of these Electrify Canada sites, they're always far off the highway. We'll take this one, the Huber Schooner cable that looks pretty new. This one looks pretty new, and because it's warm, the cables are in good bendy condition. We'll go on my phone and we'll activate the charge. What charger is this? Number 1. Let's swipe the charge and see if this works. And I have Pass Plus pricing. Initiating charge. These are BTC Power standard Electrify Canada, Electrify America. This was the backbone of their network. Now we're slowly getting upgraded to Generation 2 or Generation 3. So this is, we'll hit continue. Come on. So we're paying 56 cents a kilowatt hour here in Ontario, which is not bad. We'll hit continue. There we go. And I also never liked how it said, thank you for choosing Electrify Canada. And we've already hit, the charging plan here is I'm going to go up to 80%, and then I'll start riding the chargers after that, only because I know I can get a good charge here, and the car's getting really, really good efficiency. It's 15 Celsius outside. We got the summer tires on, low rolling resistance summer tires. Plugged in here at 15% state of charge. There's a Mach-E and there's an ID4 I just pulled in, so that ID4 is probably going to go to 100% because ID4. After here, we'll check out where I'll go and charge next. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Electrify Canada seems to be working. Hopefully it doesn't stall out on us or fail the charge, but we're charging up good here. Let's go see what we're pulling. And charging up good over here at Electrify Canada. Pulling 80 kilowatts. I don't know if you could see it. We're pulling 80 kilowatts so far, 25%. So we've done 10% in the last 3 minutes. That's pretty solid. That will start tapering down soon pretty quickly. I know how this car charges, but everything is good here. Fiat is performing solid, looking great on the diamond cut wheels. I like these wheels. These are pretty good looking wheels, although very difficult to clean. And we have the Mach-E extended range and an ID4 Pro S charging up as well. This is what's kind of nice, is that you see these charging up and they got a lot more range in them, so you're not always seeing the same cars charging. You now join me at Ivy charging site here in Napanee, Ontario, just off the 401. 401's just over there. I had to use the washroom, so figured if I'm going to stop and use the washroom, I might as well take a 5-10 minute break and get the car plugged in. So this Ivy is on the province of Ontario's charging network. There was a gentleman here in a Ioniq 5 charging saying that that one was broken and the one we're plugged in on is only putting out 100 kilowatts, which is fine. But again, old BTC equipment having issues, reliability issues, same problems that plague Electrify America, Electrify Canada. But Ivy is upgrading their sites. They're upgrading their sites with ChemPower charging equipment. And this is why choosing the proper equipment from the beginning is quite important. But also on the other hand, with Ivy and a lot of the charging network providers, is they basically bought whatever was available at the time and made sense at the time. So now we're starting to deal with these legacy costs. As the technology progresses, the infrastructure is getting better and the equipment's getting better. So now everyone's in a rush to upgrade the unreliable broken equipment that they have. But so far so good. 62 cents Canadian a kilowatt hour. It's very busy here. Fiat's doing good. Driving through the hills going through Kingston was pretty brutal. The battery was going down pretty quick. Back with the iced chai latte from Starbucks. Very sugary as usual. 60% state of charge. Charging time has been 12 minutes. 42 kilowatts. I think we'll stay here about another 2 or 3 minutes to get out of here. I don't know why I ended up getting a large. I don't even really like sugary drinks all that much, but whatever. I was in the mood for some reason. Let's get unplugged from here. We're good to go. We'll stop. Come on. Stop. Stop, you old school charging device. Sometimes they're not the fastest to stop. Come on. There we go. Now I stopped it if I know how it works. So we've been here 16 minutes, 14 kilowatts of energy. Let's get unplugged and back on the road. There we go, that's done. Put the cracked Huber-Schuner cable back. Get that charged up. Polestar 2 just rolled in here. Let's check the battery temperature and hit the road and get out of here. 66% state of charge, so between 35 and 38 degrees Celsius, so not too horrible on the battery. I'm really happy it's keeping battery temperature. It makes the charging a lot better. Let's go. So I'm charging up here at Ivy, just off the 401 in Trenton, and I literally have to hold the charging cable like a gas pump handle, because otherwise the system will fault, it will trip the latch, and it will turn off the charging. It was all going so well up until this point. I really thought I would plug the car in, walk away, go use the washroom. Instead, I'm standing here while it's charging. It's pulling, yeah, you see, it doesn't work. It just stopped the charge because these useless BTC dispensers put so much pressure on the charge port where it doesn't work, and this has been a big problem with these, and this is why they're getting upgraded. I thought there was an issue with the car, but no, it's just shitty BTC charging equipment. So as we saw in the previous clip, I was holding up the charge cable to get it to initiate a charge, and it was very wonky with the latch, but what ended up happening is I had to stop. This is about 80 kilometers away from our last stop in Napanee, because I drank that gargantuan iced chai latte, so I had to go use the washroom. So I figured, well, if I'll be using the washroom, I might as well get a charge for 5 or 10 minutes while I'm there and just stretch my legs again. Couldn't get a charge to initiate the first time. Tried it again. Then the car faulted, high voltage charging system error. By the time I cleared out the codes in the modules, I wasted about 20 minutes messing around with the charger. Maybe actually 25 minutes messing around with it. And that's why I was standing by the side of the road holding up the charge cable. I ended up getting it working by shoving a popsicle stick in or something, just so that the latch wouldn't come back down and stop the charge. Let's get unplugged from here. We're pulling 12 kilowatts. I'm not standing here for a million years. Let's get unplugged, busted up cable. But to be fair to Ivy, it looks like they are doing site upgrades here because everything is marked and flagged. So it looks like they'll be putting in proper charging equipment, not broken up garbage. Okay, let's get back on the road because we've been here too freaking long. So 86% state of charge, 192 kilometers. To Barrie is 255. So we're going to have to make one more stop, but I really want to make that stop somewhere in Toronto, possibly at the Circle K site. Well, no, that's not working. Anyways, I'll give you an update from the road. We got to get out of here. Sit rep from the car. We are 19 kilometers or 12 minutes away from the charging site. We are at 18% state of charge, showing 41 kilometers indicated. It's going to be tight, but we're going to make it good. We're definitely going to make this one. We'll check in at the charging site, or if we break down on the side of the 407. Hello and welcome to Vaughan. We finally made it. That last stretch from Trenton actually was really efficient, like 15.3 kilowatt hours per 100. We plugged in here. We actually got here at 10% state of charge. I didn't film that because I just wanted to get plugged in. 84 kilowatts. We're pulling 84 kilowatts on the Fiat ABB Terra 184 at Circle K. This is actually a nice spot. Circle K, Couche-Tard, they do their charging properly. So we're going to charge up here. We have 65 kilometers north on the Highway 400 up to Barrie. We'll charge here for I think 15 minutes and we'll be back on the road. Charging on the 407, there was none. There was maybe some out by Richmond Hill. I could have stopped there, but that requires getting off the 407, then getting back on and having to pay twice and all that nonsense. So I figured this is pretty close to the 400. One exit off the 400, easy getting back on the 400. Really, really good. We're already at 20% state of charge. Been here about 15 minutes. I think it's time to get unplugged, but this thing, the Fiat in the 10% challenge would actually be pretty good charging wise. Plugged in at 10%, 14 minutes, 30 seconds, almost 18 kilowatt hours of energy. It really rips. And it even holds. The charging curve on this car is really good for a city car. It's really, really good. I'm super impressed. Now we got to head north and yeah, look at this traffic jam. It's going to be a shit show getting out of this place. Even this gas station is rammed. There was a massive lineup for the wash and for gas. Ooh, cool. Old school Volvo. Look at that old school Volvo over there. A 240. All right, we've been here 15 minutes. 5 seconds longer, 5 seconds longer. There we go. We'll unplug. Let's get, come on, unlatch. There we go. Put this back in here. It worked. Let's get on the road. And that's it. We'll figure out how much that costs later. But that's what happens when you have robust charging infrastructure from a company that gives a damn about charging. All right, the run to Barrie is saying 63 kilometers or 36 minutes. Let's get out of here and on the road to Barrie, and we'll check in there. And we'll end this part one once we get to Barrie, Ontario. Let's roll. We made it to Barrie. I'm not going to really do a fancy outro. I'll show you a bit of town maybe in the second part, which will all be, this will all be one film, charging infrastructure in Ontario. I gotta say, the Fiat really nailed it out of the park. I didn't really expect this to be a good road tripper, but it ended up being actually a good road tripper. It's strange how that worked out. Charging curve on it is solid. Really good charging performance for a city car. Really good efficiency. Mind you, it was pretty warm today and there was no wind whatsoever. We'll see how that goes back on if I eat my words on Sunday. Sorry, I'm really tired. Been driving all day, obviously. 617.8 kilometers. So by the time we finish up here, it will be 618. Average efficiency 15.5 kilowatt hours per 100. Absolutely wild. It was really efficient for a city car, and it having the aerodynamics of a house. I think that was a good call putting the summer tires on. But that run from Trenton, the Ivy in Trenton, to the charger in Vaughan, I think that was 178 kilometers, 180 kilometers roughly. I'll leave it down below. And we left there at 85% state of charge and got to Vaughan at 10% state of charge. So this car, like highway range, is like 215 kilometers in my opinion. It was really impressive. I'm tired. I'm going to go eat pizza with my friend, drink some beer, watch Formula One qualifying, and we'll pick this up on the return trip back to Montreal. Well, welcome to Sunday morning. I drove down from Barrie back to the charging site in Vaughan. I left Barrie at around 85% state of charge, I believe, but the weather was absolutely awful. It was probably a 60 kilometer an hour headwind, and we were just burning through battery like crazy. But also at the same time, Laura had flown in from Montreal, and I had to go pick her up at Pearson Airport because we were going to drive back to Montreal together. It's always nice having some extra company in the car. Little did I know I was about to descend into a world of absolute hurt dealing with EV charging. It started off well, but as you'll see in the film, it went absolutely terrible. Hello from Oshawa, Ontario. We decided to get just some drinks and some snacks here. There's a, I think that's Canadian Superstore. They're known as Provigo in Quebec. And we're just here at a Canadian Tire at Electrify Canada. And I got to hand it to them. Covered stalls are awesome, especially when it's raining. We plugged in at 45% state of charge. Didn't really need to charge, but we figured, we're going to make a stop anyways. Let's just get the car charged. At 42 cents a kilowatt hour with the Pass Plus, that's much cheaper than it was in Brockville. Efficiency is not great on this run. We're averaging about 18 kilowatt hours per 100. That's due to the weather. I mean, it's windy, it's rainy. I didn't expect good conditions going back home, to be honest with you. I think we mentioned this in the Friday video. Everything is good here. Once we taper down to like 12 kilowatts, we'll unplug and we'll get back on the road. I'm probably aiming somewhere Trenton. I'd like to charge around Trenton, that area there, because we could also stop for lunch and get some food. But everything is good here with the Fiat. Everything is all right. Electrify Canada working solid. I mean, they've had their issues, but they seem to have really improved. Super happy here. We're out of here once we taper down. I think around 90% we'll unplug and get out of here. Back on the 401. Just taper down hard to 12 kilowatts. So we'll get unplugged. We'll stop the charge. Stop. There we go. We'll stop the charge. That costs $6.72. I'm not really following any charging specific schedule or running the battery down. When we stop for a break, that's when we'll charge. This is not a charging test or anything. This is just a relaxing drive. So we'll get back on the road here and we will continue. Welcome to Ivy, back in Trenton. If you remember, we charged across the 401 that way. So we're charging up the Fiat here. Yeah, we got here and the Ivy app is useless. So it says, oh, 3 or 4 available, cool. Well, what it was actually showing was 3 CHAdeMO ports available and only 1 CCS. But I think they got the CCS working for the Ioniq 5. Anyways, we had to wait about 10 minutes. We used the washroom in the process because I've been drinking copious amounts of water and fluid and it's going right through me like a hot knife through butter. Charging up here on the good old BTC unit. I know Ivy is improving, but this is a really busy rest stop here. To have equipment down is kind of lame, but we covered this before. So 69 kilowatts on the Fiat. We're all doing good here. I could have drove down further east on the 401 and got off in Belleville, but only 50 kilowatt circuit electric. So I decided I could use the speed here, wait about 10 minutes for the spot to free up. It was a guy in a Model Y. He moved out right away when he saw what I had to do, that I needed to charge. So that was perfect. I'd rather wait here, use the washroom, then get plugged in to take advantage of the speed on the dispenser. We're all good here. We just hit 70 kilowatts, and yeah, that's it from here in Trenton. So I think we're going to call at Kingston for lunch. We'll try to find something in Kingston. The efficiency is absolutely at the window today. It's absolute garbage. Friday we had perfect conditions. I think we had perfect conditions on Friday. We averaged 15.5 kilowatts per 100, no wind, nice and warm, 20 degrees. But today is just brutal. Rain, cloud, wind. You got everything here thrown at you. And also there was a guy in an XC90 hybrid that I was trying to charge here. I don't know what he was thinking. But we're all good here at Trenton. Our little Fiat's plugging away. I picked up Laura from the airport. She decided to fly in to come and join me back on the drive. We're always down for a road trip. They got the cool, so my backup plan is, if the CCS didn't work, was to use the NACS old school CHAdeMO Tesla legacy. But we're all good over here. The Ioniq 5 guy is back. Fiat is charging up well. Perhaps not as high as I would like, but 34, I think we arrived at 24% state of charge. So 3 minutes, 10%, that's actually really good. Fiat's been a charging beast. Like for a city car, this thing charges absolutely fantastic. Like pretty good road tripper. If the infrastructure was a bit better, I would just be riding charging versus having to do these charging stops at like 30%. But as I said, I prefer to charge when you have to go to the washroom or you're getting a bit tired or stretch your legs. That's the best way to do it. Unless you really have good charging infrastructure, which is not here. Like if you're in Quebec, I would just ride chargers, get there at 5 or 10%, plug until 60 and get out of there. Can't do that here in Ontario, especially on the 401 because the infrastructure is so bad. Oh, WTF, it keeps booting me off. This is the 3rd time I've had to reactivate a charger and it only charges for a minute and then boots you back off. Absolute effing garbage. Like, well, you know what I'm thinking right now. Absolute insanity that nothing works properly. It's insane. The state of EV charging here in infrastructure. So let's see what's working. We're here at En Route in Trenton. So 50 kilowatt ABB is working. 50 kilowatt ABB is down, is dead. The up to 100 kilowatt is working, but only on CHAdeMO. Who the hell uses CHAdeMO? Your CCS is most important. I would replace the CHAdeMO with a CCS, with a spare CCS cable here. And my charge just stopped. Welcome to charging your EV in Ontario on Ivy. Absolutely hilarious. After the fiasco in Trenton, we just decided to make it to Kingston. We had more than enough charge. This was at Petro-Canada. Brand new charge point equipment, worked properly. Actually, it didn't even charge me here. We did 10% to 80%. And there was also a really nice A&W. This was a really nice stop, but I couldn't do any filming here because it was so loud with wind and rain and trucks around. So this was in Kingston, Ontario. After we left Kingston, the next stop was going to be in Prescott. As I said, the whole point of this film was to test out the charging infrastructure on the 401. So this is in Prescott, Ontario at a McEwen charge point equipment. It worked properly. There was no issues to really speak of, except the price. It was absurd. It was something like $30 an hour for charging, which I found a bit weird. They were charging by time-based still, but also charging so much. But it was a nice rest stop. It was all brand new. The infrastructure worked, and that's what's really, really important is that there's... Just giving everyone a little update. We're at the McEwen site here. Charge point equipment. It's called Quickie. Yeah, that's an interesting name. Anyways, we got here at 40% because we were kind of entering a charging dead zone, so I wanted to get topped off here. But we had stopped in Kingston, and we charged up 16% to 80% there in Kingston and left. I couldn't do any filming only because it was very windy outside. Hold on, I'll flip the camera now. I couldn't do any filming in Kingston because it was extremely windy, and it's the same deal here. So we'll just do a voiceover of what equipment is here. Yeah, super windy outside. Even with a microphone, proper cover on the microphone, you're not going to hear anything. I tried to walk across the parking lot and almost got blown away into another dimension. But everything is good here. We just hit 80%. We'll get unplugged, and I think we have one more charging stop to do. We'll probably stop in Lancaster at Circle K, and that will be the final stop to get home. We've just been stopping for 15 minutes whenever we need to charge, or where I think we might have an issue. It's getting late in the day, it's getting busier out on the road, so the charging sites are starting to fill up. We blew a lot of time at that Ivy site, wasting time there. But yeah, charging here in Ontario, I mean, they have charging, but it's not too good. It's really not too good. And combined with this wind, the efficiency of the car, it's saying 17 kilowatt hours per 100, but I feel like we're burning a lot more than that, based on my math in the head. Anyways, we'll get unplugged here and we'll get back on the road. Plugged in here at Circle K in Lancaster, Ontario. Of course it works, even though these ABB Terra 184s can be a bit wonky at times. That last charging stop in Prescott was really expensive. We were there, I think we did 30 or 40% to 80%. It was like $13, which is crazy, but there's not much options. The problem with this trip has been not so much the range of the car. The car is actually really efficient and has half decent range. And there's grass on it or something now. The problem is that you find yourself in these weird scenarios where you're kind of like in between charging sites. So you're charging too soon because if you went too far, you'd barely make it there. I know the Fiat well, but I don't like to be in this predicament where you arrive at the site at 5% and then you find out, like at those Ivy sites, that it's only three CHAdeMO connectors working and one CCS. So that's why I prefer maybe just stopping a bit early when the infrastructure is a bit wonky or a bit sketchy. But so far so good on the Fiat. I'm really impressed with the Fiat. It took me a while to like this car based on our buying experience and the whole dealership disaster, which we already know about. But for a road tripper, it's not bad. Yes, you might have to make more frequent stops, but Friday wasn't too bad. I'm pretty sure Friday I could have done in actually 3 stops if I didn't drink 4 liters of Starbucks iced chai latte. But so far so good. Yeah, it's windy today, but all the EVs are suffering from the efficiency problems in the wind. It's just, for such a small car, it's actually pretty solid. The charging on it's solid. The comfort is I think is much more comfortable than the Mini. It's just overall, I'm happy. It was awesome taking this car. A couple stone chips on it, unfortunately now, which we'll have to deal with because the paint is razor thin. But yeah, we've been to this site before. I don't think we need to waste too much time talking about it. We plugged in at 30% state of charge. I could have pushed it into Quebec, but we didn't have enough to get home. And sometimes those circuit electric sites in Quebec, like Rivière-Baudette or Coteau-du-Lac, or even Vaudreuil-Dorion, they could be getting a bit full now, and figured might as well stop here, have a little break, charge up. There's nobody here because I don't think many people know about this site. So yeah, we'll charge up here and we'll head back home and we'll give our final thoughts once we get home. And I apologize for not doing any of the filming inside the car of the highway with the music and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's the 401. Well, what do you want to see? You want to see straight road for 400 kilometers of trucks and people doing 140 kilometers an hour. I think we'll save that for our trips to Europe, the actual driving. But 401, absolutely soul-sucking. I don't want to put you through any of that 401 driving. ABB Terra 184, and we'll probably go up to, we'll probably do a 15-minute charge here. plugged in, I think at 30%. We've been here 9 minutes. We're already almost at 60%. Really solid charging curve on this car. 42 kilowatt hour battery, peak DC fast charging rate, 88 kilowatts, but it will hold really good power until about 85%, and then it just falls off the cliff to 12 kilowatts. So that's how we've been charging it, either at 30% or 10% or whatever. Super solid charging, especially when the battery's nice and warm, like all. If you are wondering what happened in Kingston, I will include a photo. That Petro-Canada charge point site was really nice. One of the nicest charging sites I've been to in Canada. Everything was new. The washrooms were spotless. That's what really impressed us the most. We always look for clean washrooms, how far you have to walk to find the washrooms. That was really good. But what really was the problem, where there was no chance in hell of filming. It was so windy, where even that site in Prescott was insanely windy. There was no point of even talking on the microphone because you wouldn't hear anything, even with a cover on it. But that Petro-Canada charge point site, it worked. And I used my charge point RFID on my phone, fired right up. Shared power site, but some of the people there were getting like a bit bent out of shape, like asking how long do you have to charge and why are you charging that high? I said, well, I'm going to 80%, man. Like, you just plug in next to me with your Mach-E. It's a shared power site. Just plug in. Yeah, but I'm not going to get full speed. Well, I'm out of here in 5 minutes. Plug in, start the process, start getting something, and then when I leave, you'll get the full power. But yeah, some people still don't understand how EV charging works. I just think a site like that in Kingston, you need something like European style, like Ionity having 10 or 12 posts there. For two charge point posts on power shares, not really cutting it, but I'm happy it was there. We had planned to do the Electrify Canada site in Kingston, but it was really far into town at Canadian Tire, and there was nothing around there. Like, at least in Kingston, we got to eat at A&W. Proudly Canadian, by the way. But I've noticed on this trip, the good sites like the en route, the Ivy stuff doesn't work properly, but they are getting upgraded to ChemPower, or you're at sites like this that have half decent amenities. Laura says the washrooms weren't too clean, so she wasn't too happy about that. But overall, the trip's been not bad. Fiat's been solid. It hasn't been a bad trip. As I said, we'll get unplugged here, head back home, and I'll give the final thoughts at home and a whole roundup on this trip. 15 minutes of charging, that's good enough. We'll have enough juice to get home. More than enough juice to get home. It's getting a bit late. It's around 4 o'clock now, so we'll get unplugged here. Click. Let's get this in. We'll get that in. We'll figure out, we'll add up the cost of charging later. It was about $40 to get to Toronto with charging. I left work in Kirkland at 100% state of charge. Let's see how much we got with that. It's showing here 70%. Let's see what we got. 1, 2, there we go. Still haven't figured out how it works. There we go, now it's in run. 126 kilometers, so yeah, we have more than enough to get home. Let's get home and see the cats. Precious cats. And we've just crossed back into Quebec, 63 kilometers home, and everything is okay in the car. Did drop quite a bit already, but I guess the wind picked back up, but everything is good here. I told you I'd show you a bit of the highway. We'll have to put the camera away soon. Laura doesn't like the camera when I'm driving, but let's just say she's holding the camera. That is our famous Rivière Boudet rest stop there. Actually, those chargers are empty, but those are 50 kilowatt circuit electric. So yeah, 52 minutes back home because there's traffic for sure going through Dorion because of our wonderful never-ending construction, but all good over here after that last stop. We are back home now. The Fiat's charging on level 2. Give the battery a rest from all that DC fast charging. So the trip itself, the car was excellent. The car was fine. There was no issues with the car. I know what the comment section is going to say. Oh, it's an EV. You had to make so many stops. Yes, but it also has a very small battery, 42 kilowatt hours. But the whole point of this, taking the car, and the whole point of this video or this film was to test the DC fast charging infrastructure on Highway 401. And I can tell you it is nowhere near where it needs to be. I know in Quebec we have it good here, but even Quebec, I don't think it's quite where it needs to be either. But Quebec is living in 2035 compared to Ontario. The problem that I encountered was you really had to be aware of where you were on the 401 if you did need to charge. versus having here in Quebec charging. There's almost charging at every exit. There's going to be something on Highway 40 or the 20 going out to Quebec City. And if you compare the two lengths of those highways, if you put them on top of each other, well, it would roughly kind of equal the same distance as from my house to Toronto or to Barrie. And you would have all this beautiful charging infrastructure because there are two ways to get to Quebec City or the other side of the St. Lawrence. But this is not about Quebec, this is about Ontario. Yes, Ivy is improving their network with Chempower equipment, but it's not going in fast enough. Trenton was absolutely a disaster, both sides, north and south, north services and south services was a complete disaster. That's sort of halfway between the two cities, and to have that much equipment down at any given time is a complete joke in my opinion, but it does look like they'll be doing site upgrades there. Obviously more charging stops on the way back for the Fiat. There was a lot of wind. The weather was absolutely horrendous, 60, 70 kilometer an hour winds. But it nailed it. I mean, it did it DC fast charge twice. We got the DC fast charge extremely well. Pretty good efficiency on it. And we got to test out the infrastructure. But yeah, Ontario is just like dropping the ball. I don't understand what's going on. They just don't seem to be interested in investing in EV charging infrastructure, but they seem to love giving out handouts towards EV manufacturing. But how are you going to sell EVs if people can't road trip them properly or they're waiting for broken chargers? I mean, what do you do at that point? So infrastructure needs to get better. It is possible to do the road trip. We proved it in the Fiat. Something with a longer range would have been a lot nicer, but you're kind of at diminishing returns in that point because you may not have the charging speed, so you're charging for longer and so on and so forth because the battery's bigger. Yeah, Ontario, they need to get their acts together in terms of EV charging. I wouldn't say it sucked, it just sucked having to always be looking to where you needed to charge, and you would get there and it would be blocked or down and all the usual issues with charging. It was all right. It worked for us. But arriving to a broken 50 kilowatt, I'd rather have it working than it being broken, but they're just not putting it in fast enough. They're not taking it seriously enough. I would do the trip again, obviously, but I think you really got to do some planning. You really got to be looking on PlugShare to find out where that charging is. So hopefully that they get it together in Ontario. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please like and subscribe. And I think that's going to be it for the video. And we'll see you in the next one. And hopefully you get to experience the joy of your soul being sucked on the 401.